Assalamu alaikum class. Today we are going to start our lab number 8, that is the matched load performance of a transmission line. Objective of our lab is to measure the voltage and current relationship of an overhead transmission line in matched load operation and to find its characteristic wave impedance, lagging and leading operation and efficiency and transmission losses. Now, before starting this lab, first you should know about the match load operation of a transmission line. Therefore, first coming towards what is the match load operation of a transmission line. Actually, match load operation, you must know about, first you must know about the surge impedance loading. So first coming towards our slides. First I will let you know about the surge impedance and surge impedance loading of a transmission line. Surge impedance loading is defined as the maximum load that can be delivered by transmission line when load terminates with the value equal to the surge impedance of the line. Simply, if any line terminates with surge impedance, then corresponding loading in megawatt is known as the surge impedance loading. So students, in this case, you will see in the hardware practical that we have different loads connected with our transmission lines, and we will find at which value of the our load that load will becomes equal to our surge impedance of a transmission line, and at that point you will see that the reactive power consumed by the line is almost zero, that is negligible, and the maximum loading occurs because we have the maximum megawatt power is real power is transmitted in that case. Surge impedance. So what is surge impedance? Surge impedance is a characteristic impedance of a transmission line, and it is also known as the natural impedance of the line. That's why you can see in the manual that it's written that at which value of the load resistance, and that load resistance is the natural load because at that value of the load resistance it is equal to the impedance of the line, that is the surge impedance of the line. Now we have to calculate this, how to find the surge impedance of the line. We are taking a long transmission line of length that is greater than 250 kilometer, and you can see here that its resistive, inductive and capacitive components are equally and uniformly distributed in case of the long transmission line. So in long transmission line, how to calculate the surge impedance? You can see here that the surge impedance can be calculated when the reactive power absorbed by the capacitive components is equal to the inductive component. What happens actually that when the surge impedance, when the line is charged, it means that when we have connected the load and when different values of the load is connected, then we have a capacitive behavior and at some point we have a inductive behavior. When the line is charged, the capacitive component actually feeds the reactive power to the line while the inductive component absorbs the reactive power. Now if we take the balance of the two reactive power, we arrived at the equation that the reactive power absorbed by the inductive component equal to the capacitive component, that is actually the feeding the reactive power. Then this equation become balanced, you can see here. Then after balancing the equation, we can write it, the capacitive component can be written as V square by Xc and inductive can be written as I square XL. Now rearranging the formula, you can write it, bring the I here and bring the Xc here, and by removing the square from the voltage and current, we have taken the square root, and you can see that the square root comes on the XL and Xc, and this square is cancelled out by the square root, and at the end XL and XC can be written as 2 pi FL, and what about the XC? It can be written as 1 over 2 pi FCL. So these two components are 2 pi f and l are cancelled out, and we are only left by L and C, and actually the square root of L divided by C is our surge impedance Zs, and this is called the surge impedance. So if you know the inductance and capacitance of the transmission line, you actually calculate the surge impedance by square root of the L by C. The above quantity has the dimension of the resistance is known as the surge impedance of the line when a purely resistive load of equal value is connected with the transmission line. It means that when we have calculated the Zs of the transmission line, that is the surge impedance of the line, and now when we connect the purely resistive load of equal value of the impedance of the transmission line, then what happens? Then reactive power generated by the shunt capacitor will be completely absorbed by the inductor of the transmission line, and in that case the total maximum power is transmitted, and that is the real power is transmitted, because the reactive power is totally absorbed in case of the transmission line. So the value of the surge impedance for overhead transmission line is around 400 ohm, and for the underground cable it is for the 40 ohms. Significance of the surge impedance, you have already see that in case of the surge impedance loading, you can predict the maximum loading capacity of the transmission line, and its maximum loading capacity is in megawatt loading of the transmission line, because the reactive power balance is occurs. So the total power that is the loading capacity is only in the megawatt, because reactive power is balanced, and actually the line current is just large enough for the reactive power of the consumption of the line, inductor and capacitance to cancel. Therefore the transmission line does not require any external reactive power for the operation, as in this case the power losses are minimum and maximum power is transmitted. Now what is the effect of the surge impedance loading when the line now we have to see, actually you will see in the observation table that we have to connect the loads, different loads from R1 to R7, and at all loads we can see that at one value of the load resistance, that is at that value which is equal to the surge impedance of our line, at that point we have a maximum power transfer because the reactive power consumption at that point is minimum. What about the other loads? You will see that other loads have the capacitive and inductive behavior, and in this case when the line is loaded less than the SIL, then it acts as a shunt capacitor, which means that it will supply MVR to the system, and in this case receiving end voltage will be greater than the sending end voltage. You will see all these values in the observation and in the readings, that we will see that at R4 we have a surge impedance loading occurs at R4 load. Above R1, the R4, that is R1 to R3, we have a capacitive behavior. That's why our receiving end voltage will be greater, and we have a maximum supply MVR to the system. But in case of the below that value, below the surge impedance value, that is below the R4, that is from R5 to R7, in that case we have a inductive behavior. Therefore the voltages are less than the sending end voltages, receiving end voltage is less. Therefore when the line is loaded above its SCL, then it acts like a shunt reactor that will absorb MVR from the system. In such case, a voltage drop will occur due to the receiving end voltage will be smaller than the sending end voltage. Hence, a compensator is required to maintain the voltage level. Now, how to improve the surge impedance of the impedance loading of the transmission line? As you all know that electrical power is transmitted, and we want to increase the electrical power transmission, and it can be increased by increasing the value of the the receiving end voltage and reducing the surge impedance. Now what happened if we increase the receiving end voltage of the transmission line? We can increase the voltage transmission capability is increased. So most commonly adopted method for increasing the power limit of the heavily loaded transmission line is by increasing the voltage level, but there is a limit beyond that, which is it is either neither economical nor practical to increase the receiving end line voltage of the power network, so it is not possible. Then we have the other option, that is by reducing the value of the surge impedance. Since surge impedance is directly proportional to inductance, you have already seen it in the formula, that is directly proportional to the inductance and inversely proportional to the capacitance. So value of the surge impedance can be reduced either by increasing the capacitance or by decreasing the value of the inductance, but the inductance of the line can not be easily be reduced, so this method is also not efficient. Now again coming towards our manual, that is lab 8, we have understand the theory that actually what we have to do is coming towards our observations, that first we have to assemble this circuit. In this circuit we have a three-phase power supply, then we have a circuit breaker, then we have a transformer, and we have a transmission line, and here it is a load, only a resistive load is connected here, and here we can we have a voltmeter, ammeter, wattmeter, voltmeter and ammeter. This will give us the receiving end voltage and current, and this volt and ammeter will give us a sending end voltage and current, and this will give us the power of real and reactive power of the sending end side. So coming towards the table, actually what you have to do is we have different values of the resistance, so we will change the load from R1 to R7, and we will see here the reactive power value. You can see it will start increasing, but at a certain point you will see it will almost at R4 value. You will see that at R4 the reactive power is minimum, because here the surge impedance loading is occurs and maximum power is transmitted and reactive power is almost zero. So we will perform this on the hardware and you will see it in the video. Here is the procedure that you have to determine the particular value of the resistive load at which the line no longer consumes any reactive power, and compare this with the theoretical value, that is the theoretical value they have calculated is Z4 is ZW is equal to 240 ohm. This is our impedance, surge impedance loading of the transmission line. Now coming towards our hardware part, you will see that. Okay students, now coming towards the hardware part, this is the hardware of our match load performance of a transmission line. You can see here that this circuit is same as that of the no load performance of the transmission line. You can see only the difference is that the transmission line output or the receiving end is connected to the three-phase load. Now we will discuss our circuit one by one. Students, you can see the circuit in figure 8.1. You can see that the three-phase power supply is connected with the circuit breaker. So we have connected each phase of the power supply with this circuit breaker, and this neutral wire is also connected with the neutral of the circuit breaker. After that, the output of the circuit breaker will go towards the transformer. This is our three-phase transformer. This is its primary side and this is the secondary side. You can see in the procedure that the primary side is connected in delta connection, so here we have made the delta connection, and the secondary side is connected in star, so we have made the star connection here. After that, you can see in the figure that output of the transformer goes in the sending side of the transmission line. So we have connected these three phases of the transformer into the three-phase sending end of the transmission line. We have connected all the bridge plugs here because we have to connect the transmission line to line capacitance and also the resistive and inductive component to make this circuit complete. After that, now this is our receiving side. So the difference here only from the previous circuit is that the receiving side is connected with the three-phase load, and this three-phase load is only the resistive load here. So we have connected the each phase of the receiving end with the three-phase load. You can see here that each phase is connected with the three-phase load, and this neutral point is common with the here with this wire. In order to measure our voltage and current, you can see in the table that we have to measure the sending end voltage, sending end current and power. So on the sending end side of the transmission line, you will see that we have connected these two lines, that we have to connect the voltmeter in parallel. So here we connected voltmeter in parallel. After that we have connected our ammeter in series. So here this is the wire, we have taken this wire from the output of the transformer, and this is connected here with the ammeter. After that, this from the ammeter, you can see from the figure, this ammeter, this wire will go in series with the wattmeter. So we don't have a wattmeter directly, so we have made a wattmeter by using a PT and CT. So we have connected the PT and CT in parallel, and output of the ammeter is connected with this parallel connection. After that, this is the point, the PT point, the output point of the PT is connected to the neutral wire. So we have connected this to the neutral point, and the output of the CT will go towards our sending end phase. So here we have made the wattmeter, so we can now measure the real power, reactive power, power factor, all of the values will be measured from this wattmeter. On the output side, we have connected the voltmeter and ammeter. So you can see here on the receiving side, we have connected in parallel with the voltmeter is connected in parallel with the receiving side, and ammeter is connected here in series. So this is our whole circuit. Students, now you can see in the observation table that you have to measure the voltage, current and power of the sending side, and you have to measure the voltage and current of the receiving side. So on the sending side and the receiving side, you can see that on the sending side we have connected the voltmeter in parallel with these two phases of the sending side, and we have also connected the ammeter in series with the one phase. So we have connected ammeter in series, and here we have made our wattmeter. So we have take the CT and PT, we have connected CT and PT both in parallel, and we have connected it with series with the ammeter. After that, we have connected the output terminal of the PT towards the neutral, and we have connected the output of the CT towards the phase of the sending end. So here we have made our wattmeter, so that we can measure the power, real power, reactive power, power factor and all the values from this wattmeter. Now coming towards the receiving side, on receiving side again we have connected our CT in series with our sending side. So we have connected the CT here in series, and we have connected it with this its terminal with our load, and we have connected the PT in parallel. So we have connected these two ends in parallel with the potential transformer. So we can measure our voltage and current from CT and PT. Okay students, after assembling the circuit, now coming towards the observation and reading, we have to fill the table 8.1, and you can see in the table 8.1 we have to vary this load from R1 to R7, and after varying the load we have to measure the voltage and current of the sending end and receiving end side, and we have to measure the real and reactive power of the sending end side. As you all know that the load on a system changes constantly according to the performance of the consumer. So when the load changes, there is a change in current in the transmission line. So reactive power balance will be disturbed. If the current is lower, the line will act as a capacitive, and if the current will increase, the line will have the inductive behavior. Now what we have to determine is we have to find the particular value of the resistive load at which the line no longer consumes any reactive power. So after varying the load, we will check at which value of the resistive load the line no longer consumes the reactive power. So now coming towards the readings. For reading, first we have to on our three-phase power supply. Okay students, we have on the three-phase power supply. Then we will connect this with our whole circuit. So here we will on our circuit breaker. Now this three-phase power supply will be connected with our whole circuit. Now we have to vary the load. So first we will change our load from to R1 value. So all phases have the load R1. Now let's measure the voltages and current. You can see here the sending end voltages are 370.1 and sending end current is 0.403. These are the receiving end voltages and currents. Sending end current is 0.23 and the receiving end current is 0.23 and the voltage is 396. Real power is 56 watt and the reactive power is 66 watts. Now again varying the load to R2 value, we will again see the voltage and current. The sending end voltage is 368 and its current is 0.51, whereas now sending end power is reactive power is 47.4 and real power is 99.5. Here is the receiving end current, that is 0.4, and this is the receiving end voltage, that is 375.9. Now changing the load to R3 value, again we will measure the voltages and current. These are the sending end voltages 367 and sending end current is 0.64 and sending end power, real power is 135.7. And here we will see the reactive power is decreasing, that is 24.9, whereas the receiving end current is increasing because load is increasing, it is 0.6 ampere and voltages are decreasing, that is 356.2 volts. Now again changing the load to R4 value. You can see now the voltage is sending end voltage is 365.5 and current is 0.77 ampere, whereas the reactive power is decreased to 1.4 value. This value is very small, almost negligible reactive power at R4 load, and real power is 164.7. Receiving end current is 0.77 ampere and voltages are 338. We will vary the load to R7. At R7 we will see that the voltages are 362.1 and sending end current is 1.09, whereas the real power sending end real power is 221.2 and here we will see the reactive power is 69.3. You can see here that reactive power will now start increasing. It was a decrease only at R4 load, whereas the current is also increasing 1.15 ampere and whereas voltage we will see here the voltage receiving end voltage is 289.4. it is decreasing. Here we have noted down the values from R1 to R7 and you can see here that at R4 we have the minimum value of the reactive power. Means this is the resistive load at which the line no longer consumes any reactive power, that is at which matching of the line is achieved. Now comparing the other resistive load values, you can see from the table that above the R4 values, that is from R1 to R3, we have a capacitive behavior, and from R5 to R7 we have an inductive behavior. Voltages are receiving end voltages are increasing on the receiving end side, that is due to the Ferranti effect, and due to the inductive behavior voltages are decreasing at the receiving end side. Students, after filling the table 8.1, you can see here that now you have to fix the resistive load. you don't have to change the value of the resistive load, because at R5 we have a matched impedance. So at this value only the sending end real power is transmitted. The reactive power is not transmitted because of the matched load impedance. Therefore, in table 8.2 you can see that you have to measure the real power P1, sending end and voltage and sending end current, whereas you have to measure the sending end, receiving end voltage and current, and receiving end power P2, and at the end you will find del P and efficiency. Now what we have to do is we have to fix the value of the load resistance to R5 value at each phase. You can see that we have fixed the load to R5 value. You don't have to vary the load here. In this case we have to measure the sending end voltage and current. Power, we have already made the wattmeter here in the previous section, and but here we have also we have to measure the receiving end voltage and current, and also the receiving end power. So only I have made the changes here, that we have also made the wattmeter here, because in this case in table 8.1 we don't have to find the receiving end power, but in table 8.2 we have to measure the receiving end power too. Therefore we have also made again the wattmeter. So again we have connected the PT and CT in parallel, and this is connected to the neutral point, and this is connected to the load value. Okay, so we have made the wattmeter here. Now coming towards the reading, in the table you can see that the supply voltage is not fixed, it is varied according to the according to the secondary side of the transformer ratio. So here we have different values: un plus 5, minus 5, minus 10 and minus 15. So we will change the value of the secondary side of the so students, we will change the supply voltage to plus 5, un value, minus 5, minus 10 and minus 15, and these values will be changed according to the secondary side of the transformer. You can see here that we have different tabs here. You can find it at un minus 5, minus 10, un minus 15 and un plus 10. This task you have already done in your previous labs. So we will change the supply voltage by changing our tabs to these different points, and then the load value is fixed here. Only the real power is transmitted because we have a matched load impedance here. So we will only measure the sending end voltage, current, and sending end power, and also the receiving end power, voltage and current. So for un, when we have un plus 5%, you can see here that it is un plus 5%. For plus 5% we have connected it here. So we will take the readings for un plus 5%. You can see that the sending end voltages are to 394.1, and this is the sending end current. And what about the power? This is the power 183.0. This is the sending end power, whereas this is we will see here, this is our receiving end voltage, that is 348.3, and receiving end current is 0.99. Here we will also have the real power, that is 197. So we will fill the table accordingly, and then we will find the del P, that is P1 minus P2. We will have here del P, and we will find efficiency, that is output power over input power multiplied by 100. Here we will find the efficiency. So students, now we will again put our value to un, put these secondary side transformer turns to un, then towards un minus 5, un minus 10. I have noted down the values here. You can see the table. I have filled the table and noted down the values, and also I have find the efficiency. So after observing the readings, you can see that efficiency is independent of the supply voltage. So if you have to supply the constant power, then you have to change the supply voltage, otherwise efficiency. Okay students, after filling the table you can see that the efficiency is independent of the supply voltage. However, if you want to supply the constant power, or constant power is supposed to be transmitted, then higher supply voltage would be more favorable because the line losses drops as the current decreases.